Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times, these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
Danny L. Underwood, 31 years. I was on the fire department 31 years when I retired, and I was battalion chief when I retired. Yeah, I'd lived in Greensboro since I was a year old. So Dad, when he finished college, he moved here to get a job, or a pharmacist, so come here to work. And I've been here ever since. After I come on, I found out I was related to Chief Honeycutt and Chief Hare. They were from the same part of the country. My family come from Sampson County. Before I joined the fire department, I was looking for a job. I just finished college. In fact, we went to school at junior college there, but then I went on to get my other degree. I was looking for jobs, and I remember you saying about working or here, and all I thought was that 3 days off, I could look for a job while I was working here. It'd be a good place to start, to look for a job, and that's how I got started, or how I got into it. The process when I got hired was talk to the fire chief first, and then they'd let you know if you got picked to go through training, which I got picked, I guess, the first group then in 1973. I don't even remember the physical part of it. I don't even remember what I had to do before we went to training. A few little, what you thought was nothing, run around here, pick up something, or run up some stairs or something. I don't remember all of it. I don't know why. When I finished school, college, I never really thought about being a firefighter like a lot of people, or they grow up wanting to be a fireman or policeman or something. I never really thought about it. I just remembered what you'd said one time about the working, or talking about your brother. You were thinking about going there, and I thought, well, that'd be a good place to work. Why you can look for a job somewhere else. Starting salary was $552 a month. I don't know how anybody live off of that. Training time, training was I think it was about 3 months. I think it might have been faster than normal because they were trying to get us out, and they needed them on the line. Some of the people in my class were Danny Shoemate, Charlie Jones. I just thought his name a while ago.
There's a lot of chiefs.
Yeah, there's a lot of. Our whole class was probably one of the classes that had the most chiefs come out of it. It's about 20 starting, and probably 10 or 12 of them ended up being chiefs. Funny stories in training. All I remember, Chief Kent was always trying to get us in trouble playing games out they work on the trucks out there, and he'd run hide when Chief Osborne show up, and then we'd be in trouble. But basically, it was a lot of fun. You were still young then, early 20s, so it's easy doing the exercise, going up and down ladders. It was a lot of fun, just working with the guys. The school work was easy because I liked school. I liked going to schools. Even after I got on, I went to a lot of schools. I enjoyed it. So that part, and the physical part, it was pretty easy. The only part I probably was scared and I don't know if I ever really got used to going up the palm pier ladders. I don't even think they do that anymore, do they? The palm pier ladder was it's like a pole with steps on it, just rods that stick out, and it had a big rod at the top. You could stick in the window, a big hook. But what was scary about it, you put it in, it might not have been locked in real good, and it would slip, because it'd come back to it's going to hit that hook, and that's scary. You thought you were going. Didn't think that net they had under you was going to hold you. While I was in training, I think I grew to like it real quick, I guess, because the school part is easy for me. The hydraulics seemed like half the class had problems with that, and it was easy, so I could, help some of them. But I just enjoyed it, I guess, and being with a group. I always liked being in groups like that, and even in school, like the dorms. I lived in the dorms, the guys all up down the hall, you're doing something all the time. The dorm rooms. Now, I got to go my first year, I guess, after I started Engine 7, went to old Central Station, so that was like a big dorm room upstairs. And I liked it because it kept the guys together. When I noticed they started putting private rooms in the stations, my last 10 years or whatever, 15, I noticed that it seemed like they'd stay off by themselves. The guys would go to a room, you didn't see them. And so even when we'd visit them, going around in the car, you'd have to go to everywhere to find any individual one if they weren't in a class or something or out somewhere. So I thought that wasn't good for the guys. I figured if you could get them to stay together more, they'd all learn from each other. It was better for them, better for all of us. Engine 7, the first station I went to was Engine 7, or Station 7, Engine 7. Didn't have a truck there at that time. Captain Harry Brown. I had a pretty good older company. They were nice to work with. Junior Allen, most people will remember, was the driver, and I had Ray Flowers, which is the fire chief later on, one of the fire chiefs, and a guy that said his name, I can't even think of it, big guy. Leo Cardwell. First captain, Harry Brown, he was kind of nitpicky on cleaning like the room or making up. I thought I was at home somewhere, nitpicky about sheets had to be, like military, the corners. I want to flip that quarter on there and see if it stand up or not, or bounce. The nickname started when I was up there at Old Central. From Underdog was from McLaughlin. I don't know if you remember him. We were working today. He got kind of sick. He was a nice guy. I talked to him, big black guy, nice guy. Learned a lot from him. He was teaching me a lot, because I was one of the rookies up there. He was getting sick. He had problems. He was saying he was going to the hospital when he got off shift that day, and he never come home from hospital and never come back to work because he died while he was up there. So that's like, I guess, things like that you don't forget. In the pranks, guys like to play jokes all the time. Being a rookie, you're going to get picked on a lot there at first. Ray Flowers, of all people, was cooking. He'd send me to the store all the time. So he had a bag on him. He told me this bag, take this and potatoes in it and take them out. I started sticking my hand down that bag, and there's a snake in there. And I about threw that bag across the kitchen, and that whole room, they bust out laughing. I was wondering why they were all packed in here like that then, but he was dead. Dead snake. We cooked together, or sometimes, they did then. We'd cook together later on, different places. You did it by individual. The cooking together and eating together, I think, was good. That was part of the camaraderie, I guess, is being together. And you're not talking about work maybe sometimes. You might talk about other things or good times you had, or you could be if it's some special call you just come back from or something. You might, talk about that. Now, cooking me, I was probably a bad cook. I call myself bad, but I always want to do something easy like baked chicken or something. We just fix it, throw it in the oven, or a meatloaf, throw it together and stick it in there, or something kind of simple. It seemed like you spent a lot of time in there all day, and then 15 minutes is all gone. So that was a waste of time. Now, the staying together after work or doing things or camaraderie or doing things together back then, it was pretty much, you did a lot of that. But I noticed toward the end of the career, it seemed like people, they stayed themselves, and I didn't know if that's from being in their own little cubicle or what. They were more divided than I think we were when we were that age or when we were younger. When a retired firefighter would visit a station, it was good that you took time with them so they know that their time meant something when they were there, that people remembered them. Now, me visiting stations after I retired, yes, I visited probably a lot of them different times, different reasons, but it seemed like when I go in, most of them now, I don't know anybody, but they sure remember me, some of them, and I don't know what I did to make them remember me. The first call that I had, I guess Engine 7, when I come out of training, I remember we had 6 or 7 calls that day, so we were running pretty strong back then. And that was before they started the medical stuff, so this was all it was called as. But most of those weren't anything to them, they're just little stuff. Maybe 30 minutes, some of them, or a little cleanup or a little explaining what to do or not to do to people, and that's about all it was that first day. And that was the first day I was on. Now, some of the bigger fires, I think when I was still there at Engine 7 was probably one of the bigger ones, where a little baby died. Went in an apartment, and you know, the smoke, you know, most of you can't see anything. It's not like on TV where you can see everything walking around and what they do. But the time we got to the crib, I guess, look at the mother was still there with her hand under and over, you know, leaning over the car, the rail, and the baby was still in there, and they had to leave it that way because they died. But I ain't never forgot that. That was the first one first death too that I'd ever seen, and that was in the first few months I was there. It didn't bother me that much. I mean, I felt for them, or you think about your own family losing somebody that could be you or yours or somebody you know. Well, running medical calls when the fire department started at, I thought it's good in some ways and bad in others. Like you send a big truck for something that seems like a lot simpler, but a lot of times if it's a possible death, then a lot of times they can save them. I remember doing CPR several times, and they probably wouldn't have made it if you hadn't done that or somebody hadn't. So it helps, and I guess every life saved doesn't matter the cost. I was never on the squad, but they come out about the time right before. I guess I made captain, but I rode some of them sometimes. The fire scenes, I noticed what I learned when you learned a lot in training. You learned a lot how you're supposed to do a fire, you know, opening up but then when you go on a pretty good sized fire, the older chiefs we even had were making us do it the other way, cut a hole in the roof and stick a nozzle down it, and we're sitting there thinking, I'm thinking, and maybe a lot of the other guys, what are we doing? We're going to burn it down. So what you do, burn it on down. And maybe that was their point in doing it, but I saw real quick you need to work with the higher groups in the department as well as the new guys coming on. They need to know the same thing. Well, it might have been one, I guess. One of the goals, you know, to being a chief where you can do or have it, some input. And then also input, talking about input, it made me think, even when I made officer captain, it made me think to talk to the guy to get their ideas, because I noticed when you were rookie, nobody think you knew anything, didn't ask you, didn't want to know what you had to say. But I knew from experience that they were smart, so I got to where I talk to everybody on the company to get their ideas on anything just to see what they say, and I think it made them feel better too. Some of the changes that I've seen in the fire department since I started till closer to I left, I saw they were doing, the department was learning to do the training that like we learned to start with, to do things the right way. Everybody was learning the same thing. So that helped. We were probably, I guess our department was one of the leading departments in the country in doing some of those things. So many proudest moments on the fire department. That's hard to say, proudest. I'm not sure if I can think anything off the top of my head, except when you talk to, you know, some of the people come talk to you and you felt like that they liked what you said, or you could tell they changed from what you said and started doing or acting that way or something. So I think that was some. When one of the firefighters dies, I guess it's like a brotherhood. You feel like even after you retire, you come to their services and all. And some you come to you don't even know, especially when you're on the department. You might not do that as much after you leave. Well, when 9/11 happened, the shift I was on was working. I was working that day. In fact, and David Spears was assistant chief then. He was in Station 8, so I'd usually go around to his office in the morning and tell him what I'm going to do with the battalion or whatever plans I had that day. And I was in his office when it come on over the news. He had it on. We looked around, so then I started telling him what I would do. If we had a high-rise fire, this is what we do, this. And then I heard the second plane hit, and I looked, second, you know, just a few minutes after that, and I turned back around and I said, this is something big. We don't even know what this is now. And then we saw what it was, what it went into. But that was. And that last fire, the last big call I had was where the girl was trying to burn her boyfriend up in UNCG, the apartments over there, and she's still in jail. When I went out of the station, I called for 3 alarms going out of the door. And I forgot about that. I said, I wonder if everybody's ever done that at one time. I mean, 3 alarms to start with, and they all come. Nobody ever said nothing about that. I worked with female firefighters. Yeah, as soon as they pulled them in or started taking them in, I worked with them. And
How was that?
it was different working with them, I guess, because I think I was already officer when a lot of that started, and you had to deal with it, and you had to get the two to work together, because you'd always have some of the guys that didn't like it, and they were always talking about it, so you had to kind of work with them. Because this is going to be it this way or not. You're going to have to learn to deal with it, and learn to help them. You know, would I do to be a firefighter all over again? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I would, because I learned a lot. I enjoyed it. You met a lot of people. It was just, but it was almost like playing and going working, because it's a lot of fun both ways. You might have worked more than most people because of some of the long shifts, or I remember at old Central Station having 2 building fires in one night. Now, you don't see anything like that. You're lucky to even see one once in a while now, but back then it was pretty busy sometimes. Would I do anything different now than back then? Other than some of the training or some of the things you've seen when it come out, you'd go visit other parks. I think that was good, getting to go around to other parks in other states even, and learn what the ones that were real progressive, what they're learning. And then after a while, you got a lot ahead. A lot of parks are coming to you, so you get to go with them or help them or talk to them. So that was interesting. You got to meet people all over the country, or even in Canada too. Well, the roles of the firefighter, how they've changed some. I guess we got more special teams. Now, they started those when we were on, and I saw where it was good to have people specialize in different things, because you did a lot better on that scenery. You had more people knowing what to do. You didn't get too far into something and not do the right thing. So those were good to have the specialized teams. Remember the Union at very first, I think, when Ozzie Bowman, one of the captains, started, because he happened to be my captain then, I guess, and so he kind of taught me, and I did then, but later on I didn't like some of the things they were doing, and then some things they were okay, but I didn't agree with a lot of it. I've never served in the military myself. I would like to have, I guess, when I look back, I guess, because I always wanted to fly, and I did fly before I come on the fire department, small planes. When I started flying, my dad always wanted to fly. That's when I got in. He's always talking about it, wouldn't do it. Just one day I said, if you'll go get your license or go, I'll go too. And that's how I got started, just before I come on the fire department. So I had a license, flew around small, single engine, 2 4-seaters. And so that was a lot of fun. Still like to do it, but don't do it much. It costs too much for me. A successful firefighter, I look at somebody that comes on and does the job, tries to learn what they can. They're always asking questions about things they don't understand, but then they always want to do what they're supposed to. If they don't like it, I was open to letting them come and tell what you don't like, or you don't like doing that and why. And then you usually try to work it out. But faith in the role of firefighter, to me, it meant a lot, because I was brought up going to church all the time. So, and if it wasn't for that, I can see now that the last 2 generations don't even know what church is. I think it's the last 2 generations. So we can see how the whole country's changing. You can see more evil coming in, more things like that. It's getting worse because of not being that way, not using the Bible as a book to go by. One person was Gary Church, and it was because being a Christian like he was the only one that I noticed, not saying others didn't do it, but he was the only one I saw that talked to people about knowing who Jesus was on the department, which was a good thing. Well, toward the end of our years on the fire department, technology is I liked it. I mean, learning, because computers come out, we had them in the cars. That was neat. You could do so much. I enjoyed it. I know it's hard to learn. When you're older, it's harder to pick up stuff and remember stuff. Now it's even worse. Where do you get to be? You're almost 80 now, aren't you? My health, I think I've been pretty blessed so far, because I know I could walk out that door or pass out, die. Now I know I can die anytime, but I've always had pretty good health and still do now. I have a little arthritis, I guess I get from a family, knee problems some, but been, other than that, pretty healthy so far.
Still got your hair. That's good.
Well, our health, being on the fire department, it is different. You don't know what you're going to run into, but when I retired, I noticed my blood pressure and my weight both went down. And I was wondering why. The doctor said, you don't realize how much stress you're under in a job like that. Of course, I thought about it, and that's one reason I probably left when I did. I got to looking at, I haven't got anybody hurt yet, so might as well leave while I'm ahead, and staying a lot over 30. I enjoyed it, and I didn't want to go, but I knew you had one with the other, and I just decided that was a good time to go to do other things. There were other things you wanted to do before you couldn't do them, weren't able. If I was called to talk to a new rookie class, I had to think about it. Yeah, like if you said next week, yeah, I would do it, and I'd have to think about it. But no, right now, what to say, other than that, it's a good job. If you look at it, you can go a lot of different ways. You can get a lot of education, you can learn a lot from you could use anywhere else you wanted to go in any other field. Hobbies, I guess I always wanted to travel. So I guess we're doing a lot of that, and then my wife and I started working holiday tours when I left here. And we've been all over the U.S., I don't know how many times, and all up in Canada, cruises. We've been over 50 cruises since we've been there. And so I just like, even if it's going back to the same place, she's getting to where she doesn't really care. We don't do that much now because I had to slow down so I could do some other things. We got an RV, so we like to travel some on our own. She'd rather go by herself without 50 people because she tends to them. I don't really pay a lot of attention to them, or unless I have to. But you meet a lot of people that way, a lot of nice people, and you get to see a lot of nice, but it's a lot of fun. And the traveling, the favorite place, yeah, there's so many I would say, but if I had to put one at the top of the list down, I'd say there's several, but the Canadian Rockies, probably one of the prettiest places. The mountains and the snow, it's always snow there. But there are other places like Yellowstone. I like going to New York City. I wouldn't live there for nothing, but it's just like you see on TV. But I enjoy it, enjoy going. I just like going even if it's the same place. All the different places you can go. Of course, we've been to Israel also, but that was on our own, so we've traveled out of the country several times. People remember me from the fire department or on the fire department. I don't know, other than I hope they don't dislike, or hope I didn't leave somebody in a way they just hated me for some reason. I mean, I always wanted people to like you, but that'd only be to a certain point because they had to know where you stand. I ain't going so far. There's some ways. I'd like my family to remember me. I hope I was a good father, husband, or and tried to bring your children up the right way, which try to push the Bible a lot in teaching or trying to do things with them like that. A special message to leave to somebody. All our kids or grandkids, you love them all, and just hope you helped them where you could. I feel like I'm doing some of the right things because the older two are 30 and 28 grandsons, and they do call me, and they ask me things, which is surprising. That you ask your own parents stuff, that they'll still come to me and ask stuff. What I miss most about the fire department is, probably the camaraderie, and you meet new people too, other places, but just being around people, meeting people, I guess is the biggest thing.
Recordings.
The value of the recordings is good. And somebody's going to look at them or something, and somebody might learn something from it. Somebody might pick something up. That's why it's always good to listen to other people, talk to people about anything and everything. You'd be surprised what might change any one person.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.